Hello, so today we are going to do a compose example, and just so that we can learn how to use it for an example screen. And so I have what I want to do today is write this screen in compose, so a login screen, and then from there we can in future videos add maybe sign up, forget your password, that sort of stuff. And so it's we have the title, and then we have two input fields, one for the email address, one for the password. The password has the usual password feature where it can be, the input is hidden and then you can show it or hide it with this button. And also another thing is this is not the default input field. We'll need to adjust it a little bit, so that will give us also some practice there. Okay, so let's get started. So this is what we are trying to build, and let's get started. So we'll start with an empty compose activity. Let's call it compose login, something like that. And so we have it here. And then what we need to start doing is first we have this activity. We'll just clean it up a little bit. So remove this, and then we don't need this. We'll do our own. And we have here under Studio by default generated some colors, shapes, theme, and then typography for the text styles, right? Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is, so here we have a login theme here. So we'll keep that because we want to apply certain styles and apply the theme colors. Now here we'll start to build our sign-in screen. So let's just call it sign-in screen. Let's create a new file for it here in the UI. So let's just put it in UI package. Okay, and now we should be able to write the composable for it. So we'll start with let's increase the font a little bit. So 24. Okay, so we will write a function. This would be sign-in screen. Our composable, let's import it, and we want a preview for it as well. And the first thing we want to write is the title, right? So we want to set up the title here. So let's do that. So one thing you can notice is we need these aligned vertically, right? So in the old layout system, this will be a vertical linear layout. Here we can use a column. That's kind of the equivalent in compose. We have a column and we have a row. A row aligns its content horizontally, and the column aligns them vertically. So we can start writing our sign-in screen. So we want it in a column. Here we will have the modifier for the entire content. So modifier basically allows us to do some positioning and styling things, but it applies to the entire content, right? So the first thing in our content is the title here. So let's just add that. Let's just have title, and then we'll need an email, right? And then a password and the sign-in button. I'll just write a skeleton for all of them. And then here, sorry, we don't need to import. We should create a function. And then similar thing for email, similar for password, and for sign-in. Okay, let's start with the title first. So for the title, we just need a text, right? So that would be a text composable. So let's import it. compose text, and our text would be just what we have right now. So I'll just something like this. Let's actually use a string resource, right? So with compose for a string resource, you can just use this function here, or composable, where you pass a string resource ID. And so let's pass that. That would be sign in welcome text. And let's import the right resource, and then let's create the string value, right? So we have our text composable. Next, let's do the email input field. We'll just start with a simple text field. So that would be text field, right? We need to provide a value and what should be updated when the value changes. And what we do for this is a state value with a remember, so that compose can, on each recomposition, can remember the value of the text field and not just reset it, right? So we would have email state here, and remember, and then we will pass in a mutable state of, here we will use a text field value and not just like a string, because a text field has a lot more things that we need to keep track of, like where is the position of the cursor. So if the recomposition runs while we're inputting, we can keep track of all of that. So that's why we use a text field value. And then here we'll get the email state dot value, right? And then when the value changes, we'll need to set it, right? So we'd say email state value equal to whatever string was, whatever text field value was inputted, right? So this is pretty simple, without a lot of modifications. We'll modify it later. We need a similar thing for password for now. For now, we are not doing the hiding and showing functionality for the password, except this needs to be a password state. Okay. For the sign in button, let's also start with just a simple button, composable. So we will need to define our click listener later on. For now, let's leave it empty, and then we will need here the content, which usually for a button is a text. For our button is just a sign in text, right? So let's have that. So this would be a text, and similar to what we did earlier, this would be a string resource. So actually, since it's just one parameter, we don't need the ID like this. And this would be sign in and sign in. Okay. So that's pretty much it. So for now, let's just see what this will look like. Since we have the preview set here, we can just do this command here to build it. Okay, there is a slight problem. We need Java 11. So let's configure it. Okay. Okay, if we run this again. So the first preview usually takes some time to show up, but afterwards it should be it should be quick. Yeah, so essentially after that we probably need to also add some padding here. Just a default maybe of 16 dp around the entire column. But first, here we have it, but it's a little bit harder to read, so let's make it maybe show the entire system UI, just so that it's easier to visualize, right? Okay, so now it's definitely better. Okay, so we need to to add the padding here, and we needed to take the entire width of the screen. We need the entire content to take the entire width of the screen. So for that, we use a modifier. So let's define the entire column modifier. So that would be a modifier, and we want to fill max width, right? And we want some padding with 16 dp. Okay, so let's see what this will look like. Okay, so it looks a little bit better. Our button though is not as aligned as we want it to be, so let's make our button fill the width as well. So here we would have a modifier for it, right? So since we need to add a new attribute, let's just put it on the next line, and then here we need a modifier to fill with. Okay, we can pass here a fraction, by the way. If you want to fill just like a third of the width, you can pass 0.3 float, but here we want the entire width, right? The other thing we need is okay, so the button does fill the entire width, but we also want the input fields to be aligned with the button, right? So we want them as well to be to fill the entire width, right? So let's do that. Let's just make this similar for the email and password, right? And then we want a similar thing for the password. And the other thing is we want some spacing between the different column contents, right? So to do that, there is for column, so now they are aligned, that's good. For column, there is this vertical arrangement, right? Attribute where we can set different arrangements, right? So if you take a look here, there are multiple of them. What we are interested in, so we can center it, we can do it, we can do bottom, top, end, start. Basically, there are a lot of options, but what we are interested in is to make all the content spaced by a certain amount of space, right? So to do that, there is arrangement spaced by, where we can pass in a dp value, and that will make all the content evenly spaced by that value, right? So if you take a look what this will look like, you can see between the title and the email, we have 12 dp, similar thing between the email and the password, and between the sign-in button and the password. Okay, so this is definitely a lot better. Another thing we need is to make the title here a little bit better. We'll do this later on, but that's one thing we need to do. But we also need these to have the hints, email address, and password, right? And to do that, we can just set a label on the text field. So we would have here, we'll need to set a label. And label also takes in a composable. This is really nice about compose, is that it doesn't restrict you, for example, for label to just be a text. So this can be any composable, which is really nice. And it does this in a lot of other parameters where you can just pass in a composable. That way it allows you a lot of flexibility. So here, our composable that we want for the hint is a text. And so let's just have that, and a similar thing. Let's use a string resource. And this would be email hint, right? So, and this would be email address, right? And we need a similar thing for password here. And so for password, let's just call it password hint. And we just will need to do password, right? Okay. Okay, so actually let's run it and see what it will look like. Okay, so now we have it running. Okay, sorry, let's run it again. Okay, so we have the right email. We can add an input. We have the password, so that's good. Next step is we want to get rid of these focus indicator and these indicators at the bottom here, this underlying line, because we want our input to be like this, right? So let's go to our text field email to do that. So text field has this nice property called colors, where we can specify the focused indicator color. So this line here is just from the indicator color, both in the focused and in the unfocused state. And since we don't want them, we can just set them to transparent, right? So let's just do that here. So that would be colors equal to text field defaults. We would take, okay, text field colors. Yeah, just one warning, if you try to autocomplete in Android Studio, it has this weird problem. And so we can just fully type fit colors. And this is where you can customize the different colors for the input text field. And then it will leave the other ones that you didn't modify as they are, because you are grabbing from text field default and just modifying some of them. And so that's useful here. So we want the focused indicator color to be transparent, and we want the unfocused one to be transparent as well. Okay, and want this in both password and email. Okay. Okay, so we are good on the indicator side. Let's just make sure when we run it that the focused indicator as well is gone. And it is gone, right? So when we start typing, it doesn't appear. So that's good. However, we can see something. This is has a round edge, but this doesn't. At the bottom, it doesn't. Our design needs both the top and the bottom to be rounded, right? So for that, text field has this handy property as well, which is shape, where we can specify whatever shape we want here. So it's the shape of the text field container, so we can modify it. And in our case, we wanted to have a rounded corner of maybe roughly 8 dp or something similar to that. So let's just have rounded corner shape, right? And let's set it to 8 dp. And we want a similar thing for password. Okay, so it looks good. Another thing we want to do is for the button here, it doesn't look like the styling for the button we have here. For one, the button here it seems like it has an extra padding, roughly maybe 16 dp, so let's do that. So to set up padding for the content of the button, so be careful to not do padding here, because if you do, that will do it for the entire button. Let's see here. So you can see the button now has a padding in its container. That's not what we want. What we want is for the content of the button to have a padding, right? And so to do that, We don't have a concept here of margin and padding like we do in the layout system. We have only padding, but we have a content padding that where we can set a padding to the content of the button, so which is the text here. So let's use maybe 16 dp here. Okay, so it looks roughly the same size. The other thing we want to change is we don't want this color here. We want a different color like this, right? So to do that, we will use a similar thing to the text field default, where we customize it and change just one aspect of it. And so to do that, let's just set something here. So we want colors. We want to keep some default. So, and then modify something. So here we have the same problem with autocomplete earlier. So let's just type the entire thing. And here we want the background. We want to change the background color to something. Let's name our color here something like maybe dark color, dark blue actually. Sorry. And we need to define this color. So let's go to colors and define this. So I have its hex value, so let's just use that. So its hex value is something like this. But to use that, I will need to import graphics color, which kind of conflicts with this color class. So what we can do is just import it differently. So as jcolor, and then we can do parse color. We can use parse color to parse the string value here. The other thing is we need it to be a compose color so that we can pass it to compose properties. So this would be, we'll just wrap it because compose color can accept here an int value, and that's what parse color gives us, right? Okay, so now let's import this, and this should be better. One thing though is our title is no longer white, so we just need to set it content color attribute, and let's just use color.white, right? Okay, so this looks better. Let's run it and make sure it looks nicer. Okay, so now looks better. We have the right email address. So one thing we want to do for password is to hide it by default, right? So for that we have keyboard. We have both a visual transformation. So we actually, yeah, we have just a visual transformation that we can set. So this allows us to set different types of visual transformations. We have a password visual transformation, which is what we want. So can be used for password input field. And you can pass a mask character, but by default it's the star character. And so we'll just keep the default one. And then we will set it on password here. So we want password visual transformation. And this should be enough. Okay, so this should work now. Okay, as you can see, sorry, not star, it's a dot, that's what I meant, but this is good enough. The other thing we want is, you can see here when I start typing the email, I don't get at by default, the @ which is in most emails. So this is inconvenient. It's here. I have to do an extra tab. So what we want is we want to tell the keyboard that we are typing an email so that it adapts the keyboard to the style of the email, and we can get @ in the first keyboard screen. A similar thing with password. Password usually is a combination of letters and numbers. Here we just have letters, which is not ideal, so we want to also tell the keyboard that what we are typing is a password so that it adapts the keyboard for us. So let's do that for both. So let's start with email. So what we want is to set keyboard options here, and we want to tell it that we have a keyboard type that is an email. Keyboard type email. And we want to do a similar thing for password. We want to tell it here that we have password, right? Okay, so when we start typing an email, you can see here we get the @ sign right away, right? For password as well, we get the numbers displayed so we can easily type our password. Okay, so that's good. So the next thing we want to do is add this icon here that allows us to toggle showing and hiding password. And so when we want to hide, we would have two states, one for hiding and one for showing. So one with this a row, and then another one without it for showing, right? So let's do that. So for that means a state, because the user can click to show the password and can click to hide it. So there is a state that we need to keep track of, so that at each recomposition we'll keep whatever the user has last set on the field, right? And so to do that, we will need something similar to here. We'll need show password state, and let's call it remember here, and it's just a boolean, right, whether true or false. So we'll just have a mutable state, and by default we want the password to not be showing, so we'll set it to false. Okay, and then we'll use this, right, to show the icon. And so to show the icon, we will use here we can pass a trailing icon to show an icon at the end of the field. We also have the possibility to show a leading icon. And the nice thing here is, again, these are composable as well. So you can write your composable. It's not just an icon drawable that you have to set. And so here we can check if we want to show the password. So if the state what the user last has is showing the password, then we want to show the we want the state to be want the icon to represent hiding the password, because when it's showing, the action is hiding the password. When it's hidden, the action is showing the password, right? And so to show an icon, a clickable icon, we will use icon button. We will set up the click listener later on. And then we want the icon, which we can use this here, which allows us to have, if I go to compose, it allows us to draw a drawable or a vector drawable. And so I can just use image vector here and import. We will need material here. If you take a look, we have, okay, here, let's just get rid of this warning by putting the last version. So for this, actually, we will need some compose icon, material icons, right? So we need to grab the dependency, which is just material icons extended. Let's get rid of this warning as well. Okay, so now what we want is we want filled and we want visibility here. this icon will give us the icon for password when we want to hide it. And then let's add a content description like we usually do for images. And here, string resource. So this is when the password is showing, so the action is hiding it, right? So here, hide password. And then we want a similar one, except with a different icon. So here, visibility off, because we wanna show, when you click on it, we show the password because it's hidden in this else. And so the action is show password. Okay, so this is our trailing icon, so let's just make sure this works. The other thing we need to do is also probably adjust the visual transformation, because when you click on show password and the state is true, we want the visual transformation to be none. We don't want to apply any visual transformation because otherwise the password would be hidden. But if the state is true, then we want to apply the password visual transformation, right? Okay, so it should run soon. So you can see it here showing in the compose preview. Okay, so now we can type our email, and then if we come here, we can. So we have a problem here because when you click, we don't update the state. That's why the icon is not updated. So let's take care of that. So to do that here, when you click to show, so this, it was shown, when you click, that means you want to hide it. And so we want to update the state so that it can update it to this icon. And so to do that, we'll just say value is equal to it, and we want to do the same thing when you click on the other icon, right? Sorry, here it was showing, that means when you click we want to hide it. Here it was hidden, when you click we want to show it, so true, right? Let's try this. Okay, so now the image state gets updated correctly when we click, except nothing happens on the password. So we need to change the password, the visual transformation, depending on the state of the of show password state. So if show password value is true, we want to apply the password. We want to not apply any visual transformation. But if it's false, that means we want to hide it. We want to hide the password, so we want to use password visual transformation. Now here, to not do anything, we'll set none. So let's run this again. So you can see here, what's nice is that you can have one part of the composable set the state value and have another part react to it. So this is really neat here. Okay, so let's try it. Okay, so now if we want to show it, so click shows it and then hide it, show it, hide it, right? Okay, so what should we do next now that we have the password showing and hiding working? Next thing is we want to adjust this title to match what we want here in the designs. So let's go to so that means we want to change the style of the title here, right? And to do this, we can actually do something here where we can just apply. So we want this to be a title. And so we want to use typography and say it's an H1 title. It's a main title. However, we want the H1 to be our own style here. So you can, one thing we did in main activity is this sign-in screen is in a composable for composed login theme, right? And this composable has a typography. And this typography defines what's the text style for body one. But it leaves the other ones as the default value. So what we want here is we want to customize our own H1 title style, right? So that will be text style. And this will apply to all the titles in the app, right? So here what we want is, of course, these two. Here we want it to be bold, right? We want the font size to be really big, right? To match the design here. So let's do font size equal maybe to 24 SP. And we want to change the color to be something like this, right? I'll call this just maybe strong blue or something like that. And then we'll define it in the same way we did for dark blue in color here. So let's just do that, and I have the value for its hex string, so I'll just use that. And if we go here and just go to here, run it. Okay, so now we have our final view here. So you can see the title now applied the style that we set in the theme here, the typography of H1 title, and we have our email address and password as well, with the functionality of hiding and showing. In next videos, we will do other functionalities to this. So, for example, disabling sign-in until we input all the fields and they are valid, and maybe potentially adding sign-up as well. Yeah, so that's it for now. Just to do a recap of what we did. We have a sign-in screen, a column, and we are showing title, email, password, and signing button with the different functionalities that we need. So that's it. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one. Bye.